Shabbat Shalom, family. Good to see you all here. Hope you're doing well. We're going to talk about this monster size data center that Amazon is putting in Texas. Not only is this thing going to be the most massive facility, they said it's going to emit so much pollution. It will be the most pollution coming from a single company in all of the US. This will be emitting the most pollution. And it's going in Texas. The facility is requiring so much petrol gas. They're building their own gas right there on the facility. So, I'm just wondering how many data centers do you really need? I went and looked. Texas got 411 massive size data centers. And this one is going to be the biggest of them all. I just think that is outrageous. I guess America is just supposed to be a bunch of data centers and they're just going to squeeze everybody out. Makes no sense. All right, y'all, let me share my screen. Yeah. Please give me a one if you can see my screen. Thank you. And Curly Locks, thank you so much for the super chat. Shalom, y'all, and Miss Lisa and blessed family listening. Thank you so much for your support. I deeply appreciate it.
How do you power a data center that's bigger than Central Park? In the case of OpenAI's Stargate facility in Abilene, Texas, you do what a lot of data centers are doing these days. You build your own gas plant, and you do it as fast as possible. This is what Stargate's 1,100-acre campus looks like to our eyes, but thermal imaging shows just how much energy is required to power a site like this. Hundreds of cooling units line the buildings, pumping heat away from the huge number of servers inside, and gigantic gas-fired turbines send massive heat plumes into the sky. Despite lofty promises to power AI with renewable energy or even using it to fix the climate, as OpenAI CEO Sam Altman once wrote, the vast majority of data centers are actually powered by fossil fuels. And more AI companies are even building their own custom-built gas plants solely devoted to powering AI models. Nowhere is this more apparent than in Texas. At least 15 data center gas plants have been proposed for the state, and the estimated emissions from these sites are enormous. Permits show that just 9 of these plants combined could emit more greenhouse gases each year than 35 coal-fired power plants. Despite their huge footprint, our investigation found that some of these data centers started out much smaller on paper, allowing them to elude public notice and environmental reviews. Stargate's Abilene campus already has 62 backup diesel generators and 10 gas-fired turbines on site that emit planet-warming greenhouse gases, as well as toxic pollutants linked to respiratory diseases and even premature death. Yet it took Stargate's developers less than a month to get permission for these power sources. The public didn't get any say in the process, including locals living next door, who now say they feel trapped by a fossil fuel build-out they had no idea was coming. So how did Stargate do it? Well, Texas regulators let the project use a little-known loophole that involves securing minor permits that experts told me were designed for low-level polluters, things like dry cleaners, gas stations, and auto body shops. As a result, Stargate's developers didn't have to go through the checks and balances typically associated with large-scale power plants. And Stargate is far from alone. We found that since 2024, at least 38 data centers received minor permits to operate on-site power sources. And in several cases, these data centers deployed a small first, big later strategy, a tactic that Environmental Protection Agency handbooks describe as sham permitting because it can limit public input and create unstoppable momentum for projects. Stargate is a prime example. The year after securing its minor permits, its developers asked to add 41 more turbines and 18 more diesel generators to the site. If approved, this data center will be home to one of the largest fossil fuel power plants in the state. The estimated emissions from the expansion have forced Stargate's developers to finally apply for a major permit, nearly 2 years after construction began. But some say that at this point, it's too late for local residents to do anything to stop it, because the facility is already mostly built. Read the full investigation at floodlightnews.org or wired.com.
An Amazon data center sits already with plans to build an energy plant to power it, leaving neighbors worried.
This is a large concern for health of our children and safety.
So quite a few people have asked me to talk about this. This is Amazon built a new data center in Hilliard, Ohio, and they are building a fuel cell energy center to power the data center. It's AEP that's building the fuel cell energy center. And I'll just start by saying this. Typically, the cost of that energy center would absolutely be passed on to ratepayers. It would make their electricity bills go up. But Amazon has agreed to pay for the entire cost of the build out of the energy center and the infrastructure. So if that's true, which is what is being reported, if that is true, it shouldn't make ratepayers' bills go up, if that's true. But I think the biggest concern that I've seen so far is people worried about pollution and everything from these fuel cells. So I will address the fuel cells. So other than wind and solar or hydroelectric power, fuel cells are actually the cleanest way to produce electricity. And that is because they use natural gas to produce hydrogen. The natural gas isn't burned. So this isn't a typical natural gas powered generation plant. This is different because they're not burning the natural gas. So this is actually much cleaner when it comes to pollutants. But there will be a natural gas pipeline that will have to be run there, and there will be natural gas being used to create hydrogen. It just won't be burned. A lot of people don't know that a lot of hydrogen is actually made with natural gas. So is it as clean as renewable power? No, it's not. It is the cleanest form of power that is not renewable, though. It's significantly cleaner than natural gas fired power generation, and it is unbelievably cleaner than coal. With all that being said, they're plopping this down in the middle of a neighborhood. In addition to that, the city apparently at this point has no say in it whatsoever, because the state can override the city. The state has already determined that they can do that. And it appears legally that the state or the city has no recourse because the state law says that the state can approve this. And that is also a big pain point with local residents and the city themselves. So it appears, there's going to be at least 1 or 2 lawsuits filed on this because the city is not happy with the fact that AEP can just come in and stick this fuel cell power generation plant in the middle of a neighborhood, and they don't need any approval from the city. As a matter of fact, they had already asked for approval from the city, and then they went back and tore it up and said, we don't need it. The state said we can do it, and we don't need your approval. So that's a bit of a problem. Now, I'm not a resident of Hilliard, Ohio, so I really don't have a dog in this fight. But if I was a resident, and if it's true that Amazon's going to pay for this and it wouldn't affect my bill, I would be okay with that. And I would even be okay with the fuel cell generation. Not sure I would be okay, though, with them sticking that plant in the middle of my neighborhood. Because regardless of how clean it is, even if it was a renewable plant, it's going to drive down the value of all the properties that surround it. It just absolutely is. So the homeowners in that area are going to get the short end of the stick. So that is my 2 cents on Hilliard, Ohio's data center problem. Thanks.
Environmental groups claim many of the data centers being built in Texas, including 2 here in San Antonio, are also building natural gas power plants on site to power the data centers. They're also installing dozens of diesel generators to serve as backup. Now, the environmental groups claim that they should have to, these data centers, apply for major pollution source permits in order to even start building. That would require them to put in very strict air pollution controls and notify homeowners nearby of what they're doing. But the environmental groups claim that instead, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality is allowing data centers to start building with a minor pollution source permit. And these are the type of permits that are usually used for dry cleaners and gas stations. And so the Sierra Club and Public Citizen, they are accusing Vantage, which owns the two data centers, and also their partner VoltaGrid. And they accuse these companies of violating the Clean Air Act. And they are also trying to get TCEQ to change the way it does things. If you want to see more on this story, look for my complete report at news4sa.com under investigations.
Okay, I'm in the middle of beating some jewelry and I'm listening to TikTok. One creator is talking about this Matador massive AI center in Texas. So I stopped for a minute and something said, look it up, because I don't know if you see my other videos, but I am against AI centers, as I encouraged every one of you to be. And then, so I stopped and I looked it up, and it said that they're going to use a lot of electricity, but by 2031, they're going to have a nuclear reactor to help with the power needed for the AI center, using less electricity, but not nuclear or radioactive materials. Now, it pinged. I just had a download and it reminded me of a video that I did. Here's that video. This radiation poisoning through nuclear, if you know what I mean. Where I talked about poisoning. And now it makes sense as to where it's coming from, where it's going to come from. This makes so much sense. We get radiation poisoning from the nuclear reaction from the AI centers. The biggest ones will have one. And it may not make sense to you, but it makes a lot of sense to me now. We got more to worry about than just AI centers taking all the water. A whole lot more.
The data center takeover in Texas is no joke. It's not fake news. Since this all started, we have 4,088 data centers in the United States. In Texas alone, we have 411 and 962 incoming projects. This is the map of data centers in Texas. The blue markers indicating operating data centers, while the orange markers show planned facilities. Some of these already operating all use these. These are industrial gas turbines. All of the data centers use these to be powered. If it's a mid-sized project, they use 2 to 4. If it's a hyperscale project, they use 6 to 12. If it's a mega, guess how much? Up to 100. They don't impact us with any good. Overall, they do everything bad, especially polluting us. Dang, it's already hot in Texas. Wait till they kick on these bad boys and make it heat island. Not to mention, they're going to become nuclear because they're going to be powered by these by 2030 or even sooner.
Well, it definitely sounds like a nightmare in Texas. Man, and those data centers get real hot, and then you that on top of your hot weather already. Oh yeah. I can imagine it's going to be a furnace. Y'all, it's to the point where they're just kicking people out of their homes for these data centers. And I just don't know. It just seems like everywhere they put them are in already developed neighborhoods. You know, instead of putting them somewhere out the way. No, they want to put them right there in the middle of your neighborhood. It is absolutely crazy because that's where the power is. So, y'all, you heard what they said. They're doing all that stuff and putting their own gas power plants in, and they don't even have to get permission. And the residents have no say. That is crazy. So, but you know what? One thing that's different, y'all? They're putting a lot of these in Esau's neighborhood, and that's what they're really upset about. Trust me, if they were just going in our neighborhood, you probably wouldn't hear nothing about it. You wouldn't even see a video about it. But it's going in their neighborhood. And of course, now it's a big problem. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your support. And enjoy what's left of your Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom, family.